The deadliest creature on Earth isn't a shark. It's not a lion, a bear, or a venomous snake. It's not even a crocodile. The deadliest animal on the planet is something you can crush between your fingers: a mosquito. These tiny insects kill nearly 1 million people every single year. 1 million. That's more than sharks, snakes, and every large predator combined. So here's a thought. What if we just eliminated them? All of them. Every single mosquito on Earth, completely wiped out. Gone forever. We have the technology to do it. Scientists have figured out how. So why haven't we? What's stopping us? And more importantly, what would actually happen if we killed all mosquitoes? Why mosquitoes are so deadly, the disease carriers. Before we decide whether to eliminate mosquitoes, let's understand why they're so incredibly dangerous in the first place. It may sound unusual that a little bug could be this deadly, but it's absolutely true. Mosquitoes don't kill directly through their bites. They kill by spreading diseases. They're vectors, meaning they carry pathogens from one host to another. The diseases mosquitoes spread include some of the most devastating illnesses known to humanity: malaria, dengue fever, yellow fever, Zika virus, West Nile virus, and chikungunya. Malaria alone kills over 600,000 people every year, most of them children under the age of 5 in sub-Saharan Africa. Here's how the transmission works. A mosquito bites someone who has a particular disease, let's say malaria. The mosquito picks up the malaria parasite in the infected person's blood. Then that mosquito flies off and bites you. When it bites you, it injects its saliva into your body. That saliva contains anticoagulants to keep your blood flowing, but it also now contains the malaria parasite. The parasite enters your bloodstream and begins reproducing in your body, causing you to contract the disease. You might develop high fever, chills, flu-like symptoms, and in severe cases, organ failure and death, all from a single bite. And it's not just humans who suffer. Animals and farm livestock all around the world are greatly affected by mosquitoes too. Horses can contract West Nile virus. Dogs can get heartworm. Cattle, sheep, and other livestock suffer from various mosquito-borne diseases that can be fatal. Just a single bite can kill an animal. Mosquitoes cause enormous economic damage through agricultural losses, medical costs, and lost productivity when people are too sick to work. In many tropical and subtropical regions, mosquitoes are a constant threat to public health and economic development. How many mosquitoes exist? An impossible number. So if mosquitoes are this deadly and this much of a problem, how do we get rid of them? Well, first we need to figure out exactly how many mosquitoes there are in the world. That's incredibly difficult to calculate with any precision, but scientists have made estimates, and the numbers are staggering. It's estimated that there are approximately 7 trillion mosquitoes in Alaska alone. Yes, you read that right. Trillion, with a T in Alaska. You might be wondering why Alaska, of all places, has so many mosquitoes. The answer is climate change. Due to global warming and ocean temperatures rising, mosquitoes can now survive and thrive in places that were previously too cold for them. Alaska's warming summers create perfect breeding conditions. Lots of standing water from melting permafrost and snow, plus warmer temperatures that allow mosquitoes to complete their life cycle. And Alaska is just one region. Around the world, there are trillions upon trillions of other mosquitoes. They exist on every continent except Antarctica. They thrive in tropical rainforests, temperate zones, wetlands, urban areas, and increasingly in Arctic regions. The total global mosquito population is essentially uncountable, but conservative estimates put it in the hundreds of trillions or even quadrillions. With numbers that large, eliminating them seems impossible. But is it really? Ways to eliminate them, from bats to genetic modification. There are several theoretical approaches to eliminating mosquitoes, though some are more practical than others. First, let's consider a natural approach: bats. Bats are natural mosquito predators, and they're incredibly efficient hunters. A single bat can eat up to 600 mosquitoes in just 1 hour. They use echolocation to detect mosquitoes in flight and snatch them out of the air with remarkable precision. So, in theory, if we had enough bats distributed around the world, they could effectively wipe out mosquitoes globally. Sounds perfect, right? Well, not exactly. To eliminate trillions of mosquitoes, we'd need billions upon billions of bats. And then what do we do with billions of bats flying around everywhere? We'd have essentially traded one problem for another, potentially a bigger problem. Massive bat populations would create their own ecological issues, not to mention the diseases bats can carry, including rabies. Okay, so maybe that's not the best approach. Another thing we need to understand is why mosquitoes bite us in the first place. You might think they're sucking our blood because we taste good and they're hungry for a meal. But that's not quite right. Only female mosquitoes bite, and they're not doing it to feed themselves. They need the protein in blood to develop their eggs. Without blood meals, they can't reproduce successfully. The blood is for their larvae, not for the adult mosquito's nutrition. So theoretically, if we somehow eliminated all blood from the world, if humans and animals had no blood, mosquitoes couldn't reproduce and would die out. But yeah, that's not going to work either. We kind of need our blood to, stay alive. The most promising and realistic approach is genetic modification. Scientists have developed a technique that could potentially eliminate mosquitoes without bats or bloodless creatures. The strategy involves releasing genetically modified male mosquitoes into the wild. These modified males have been engineered with specific traits. They don't bite humans. Remember, only females bite. And most importantly, they can only produce sterile offspring. When these modified males mate with wild females, their offspring will be sterile and unable to reproduce. Over time, as more and more matings produce sterile offspring, the mosquito population would decline. It could take several decades of continuous releases of modified males, but eventually, with enough persistence and coverage, mosquito populations could be eradicated from targeted areas or even globally. See, gene drive technology, the real solution. The genetic modification approach I just described actually uses something called gene drive technology, and it's worth understanding because it's genuinely revolutionary. Traditional genetic modification involves changing an organism's genes, but those changes typically don't spread very quickly through a population. Gene drive is different. It's a way to ensure that a particular genetic modification spreads rapidly through an entire population. Here's how it works. Scientists insert a modified gene into mosquitoes along with a gene drive system. This system ensures that the modification is inherited by nearly 100% of offspring instead of the normal 50%. When these modified mosquitoes breed with wild mosquitoes, virtually all their offspring carry the modification. Those offspring then breed and pass it on to virtually all of their offspring, and so on. This creates an exponential spread of the modification through the population. Within just a few generations, the modification can spread to a huge percentage of the entire mosquito population in a region. The modifications scientists are working with include genes that make mosquitoes sterile, genes that make them unable to carry diseases, or genes that cause populations to produce only male offspring, which would eventually cause population collapse since only females reproduce. This technology is so powerful that it could theoretically eliminate entire mosquito species relatively quickly. And that's both exciting and terrifying, which is why there's intense debate about whether we should actually use it. If mosquitoes disappeared, the positive impacts. So let's imagine we've done it. We've successfully eliminated all mosquitoes from Earth. What happens next? The immediate and most obvious benefit: millions of people wouldn't be getting sick and dying each year from mosquito-borne diseases. 600,000 children would survive malaria each year. Dengue fever, which infects hundreds of millions of people annually, would disappear. Zika, yellow fever, West Nile virus, all gone. The economic benefits would be enormous. Billions of dollars currently spent on mosquito control, medical treatment, and lost productivity would be freed up for other purposes. Tropical and subtropical regions could develop faster without the constant burden of mosquito-borne diseases holding them back. You could enjoy being outside in the summer without any fear of being bitten. No more itchy welts, no more annoying buzzing around your ears when you're trying to sleep, no more ruined camping trips or picnics. Imagine outdoor activities without mosquitoes. It would be glorious. Animals would be much safer as well. Livestock would be healthier and more productive. Wildlife wouldn't suffer from mosquito-borne diseases. The overall health of ecosystems might even improve without the disease burden. That's right. Not many obviously bad things would happen if we got rid of all mosquitoes, at least not immediately or obviously. But let's dig deeper into potential ecological consequences. Food chain concerns. Would ecosystems collapse? What about the circle of life and all that? Don't mosquitoes contribute to the food chain? What about all the animals that eat them? This is the most common concern people raise about eliminating mosquitoes, that it would disrupt food webs and cause ecosystem collapse. But the reality is more nuanced. Sure, some birds, bats, and frogs eat quite a lot of mosquitoes. Insectivorous birds include swallows, swifts, and purple martins. Bats are notorious mosquito consumers. Many species of frogs and fish eat mosquito larvae in the water. Dragonflies and spiders also prey on mosquitoes. But here's the key point. Mosquitoes are not a hugely significant part of most of these creatures' diets. For almost all mosquito predators, mosquitoes represent only a small fraction of their total food intake. These animals are generalist feeders who eat many types of insects, not mosquito specialists. Studies have shown that in most ecosystems, mosquito predators would simply switch to eating more of other available insects. There are plenty of other small flying insects, midges, gnats, flies, moths, beetles, that these predators could eat instead. The animals would survive without mosquitoes and would adapt relatively quickly. The one possible exception might be in some Arctic and subarctic regions where mosquitoes emerge in massive swarms during the brief summer and represent a significant temporary food source for migratory birds. But even there, the evidence suggests birds would adapt by eating other insects that would likely increase in population in the mosquito's absence. Pollination. A minor role. Another concern is pollination. Some people argue that mosquitoes play a role in pollinating plants and that eliminating them would harm plant reproduction. It's true that mosquitoes do pollinate some plants. Male mosquitoes in particular feed on nectar and can transfer pollen between flowers as they feed. There are even a few plant species, including some orchids, that appear to be primarily pollinated by mosquitoes. However, the vast majority of plant species are pollinated by other insects like bees, butterflies, moths, beetles, and flies. For most plants, mosquito pollination is supplementary at best, not essential, and the small number of plants that rely heavily on mosquito pollination could likely adapt to use other pollinators or could be hand-pollinated by humans if they are important crop species. The bottom line is that mosquito pollination is not significant enough to justify keeping the species alive, especially when we're weighing that against millions of human deaths and enormous suffering. The ethical question: should we eliminate an entire species? But still, is getting rid of mosquitoes the right thing to do? After all, we would be deliberately causing the extinction of an entire taxonomic group. That's an enormous responsibility and raises some serious ethical questions. We should keep in mind that there are actually thousands of different species of mosquitoes, approximately 3,500 species worldwide. But of those thousands of species, only about 200 bite humans. And of those 200, only about 6 species are responsible for the vast majority of disease transmission. So we don't necessarily need to eliminate all mosquitoes. We could potentially target just the 6 most dangerous species, the ones that spread malaria, dengue, Zika, and other deadly diseases. Eliminating just those 6 species would save nearly all those million lives per year, while leaving the other thousands of mosquito species intact. This more targeted approach might be more ethically palatable. We wouldn't be eliminating all mosquitoes from Earth, just a handful of species that cause the most harm to humans and animals. Other mosquito species that don't bite humans or spread diseases could continue to exist and fill whatever ecological roles they currently serve. This seems like a reasonable compromise between protecting human health and preserving biodiversity. The Amazon rainforest argument: an unexpected benefit. Here's an interesting theory that some people have proposed. Mosquitoes might actually help protect the Amazon rainforest and other pristine wilderness areas. How? Because they're so deadly and annoying to humans that they make it difficult for people to enter these areas and exploit them. Illegal loggers, miners, and developers trying to cut down the rainforest have to contend with swarms of disease-carrying mosquitoes. The mosquitoes essentially act as tiny guards protecting these ecosystems from human encroachment. According to this theory, if we eliminated mosquitoes, it would become much easier for humans to penetrate deep into these wilderness areas and accelerate deforestation and habitat destruction. The mosquitoes, by making these areas inhospitable to humans, have inadvertently been protecting some of the world's most important ecosystems. It's a provocative argument, though it's worth noting that determined developers and loggers already find ways to work in mosquito-infested areas using protective gear and repellents. And it seems ethically questionable to rely on disease-carrying insects as a conservation strategy when we could instead implement proper legal protections and enforcement for endangered ecosystems. Population control. The uncomfortable truth. And let's be real for a second about something that nobody really wants to say out loud. The human population is growing incredibly fast. We've gone from 1 billion people in the 1800s to nearly 8 billion today, and we're projected to reach 10 billion by 2060. This rapid population growth is straining Earth's resources, contributing to climate change, causing habitat destruction, and leading to the extinction of other species. Maybe in some twisted way, mosquitoes are helping to keep our population in check by killing 1 million people per year. Wait, what am I saying? That's a terrible argument. Human life has value. Letting mosquitoes kill 1 million people per year, most of them children, is not an acceptable or ethical form of population control. We can and should address population growth through education, family planning, economic development, and empowering women, not through preventable disease deaths. The population control argument is sometimes made by people who've never watched a child die of malaria. It's easy to be philosophical about population when you're not the one burying your 5-year-old. Would eliminating mosquitoes be a good thing? So what's the verdict? Would eliminating mosquitoes be a good thing or a bad thing? Based on the evidence, eliminating the handful of mosquito species that spread deadly diseases would almost certainly be a good thing. The benefits: saving 1 million lives per year, preventing hundreds of millions of illnesses, reducing economic burden, improving quality of life, vastly outweigh the relatively minor ecological disruptions. There would be fewer diseases, fewer people dying, and very few negative consequences. Animals that eat mosquitoes would adapt. Plants that mosquitoes pollinate would find other pollinators. Ecosystems would adjust. We wouldn't need to eliminate all 3,500 mosquito species. We could target just the 6 species responsible for most disease transmission. That would save nearly all those lives while minimizing ecological impact. The technology exists to do this. Gene Drive could eliminate these species within decades. The main barriers are regulatory, ethical, and political, not technical. Whether we should actually do it is a complex question involving science, ethics, ecology, and human values. But from a purely practical standpoint, eliminating disease-carrying mosquitoes would most definitely be a good thing for humanity, and would likely have minimal negative impacts on ecosystems. If you enjoyed exploring this question of whether we should eliminate an entire group of species, subscribe for more investigations into humanity's relationship with nature and the consequences of our actions. Stay curious and stay bite-free.